Hello, and welcome to Property Matters, a weekly look at all matters property designed to be of interest to anyone who has an interest in property. And Property Matters is supported by Fairview International Property Consultancy and auctionproperty.co.uk. Each week we focus on the property stories of the week. Property is never far from the news. This week is no exception, and we'd love you to get involved with your comments in the chat underneath wherever you're watching us today. And of course, don't forget to like the page, subscribe, all that good stuff, so that you get automatically reminded of when we go live. And over Christmas, that'll be particularly important, of course. As you can see, we've got an email address on the screen, propertymatterstv@gmail.com. Get in touch if you'd like to do so. Smiling all the way through that festive intro there was Mr. Joe Joshi. I was watching you on the screen when that went on, and you loved that, didn't you?
Yeah, very seasonal there, Paul. But bringing in the old Christmas festivity. Merry Christmas to everybody, and welcome. Christmas week. The shoppers were hoping to obviously cash in, and I think the high streets are as mad as they can be under the current circumstances. So good luck to all those last-minute shoppers that need to get their skates on out there and try and do what they can. But apparently online is doing amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's great for people like me, of course, who are very lazy to get out there and have a battle amongst all those ladies that are already sort of doing their bit. I'd just rather do it from the comfort of my seat and call it a day. But that may not sound very Christmassy, but that's about as Christmassy as I can get.
Well, like all good males, as far as we're concerned, Christmas starts when there's less than a week to go. So we put the Christmas jingle on as there's only 6 days to go. So it's about time we put the Christmas one on. Anyway, let's talk property, as we love to do on this show. And of course, the big story of the week, which concerns property, was the base rate rise on the Bank of England base rate, increased to 0.25%, despite the spread of Omicron. And it's the first increase for 3 years, of course. It's up from 0.1 to 0.25. So these are gentle increases at this stage. But the rate hike followed data this week that showed that prices were climbing at the fastest pace for 10 years. We've got inflation at 5.1%. Well, the bank's target was 2%. So we're over double what the bank have said. But the vote on the Monetary Policy Committee was 8-1, Joe. So it was almost unanimous, but there was one that clearly didn't think, and I guess Omicron was in the back of their mind, I would imagine. But they're suggesting that with energy rates rising, of course, at the moment, the inflation in the spring could go as high as 6%. So I guess the government had to do something, or the Bank of England rather had to do something, didn't they?
Yeah, I must admit I was a little bit surprised. Also, maybe that one person was me, because I'm on the board of the Bank of England. And
can you imagine?
And so, yeah, the damn buggers voted me out on that one. But I was trying to be a good person for all those mortgage holders, including myself, that I thought, let's keep this rate at the 0.1 for as long as we can, even into sort of late January, early February next year, which is kind of what was my prediction. But I think what they've done is try to get under the radar of all the mess that is actually overtaken this, and that's not a bad thing in a funny sort of way. We've got obviously our Christmas week and Christmas coming up, and I think the priorities for most people was that, and of course protecting themselves from the virus and making sure that they had their health in good shape. So I think it kind of slipped under the radar. It hasn't had the effect that normally the tabloids and the papers will actually make a meal of this. They will just throw it, the front page at it, and just down it and dampen it and make everybody feel really bad about it. But I just don't think anyone's really noticed it. And of course, the amount that it might affect most people by is something between £5-10 to maybe up to £20 or so, maybe a bit more, depending like that. So I think in the grand scheme, it hasn't really hurt them at this precise moment in time. Of course, the monetary policy are looking at the rate of inflation, but that's obviously driven by a lot of other things. So Yeah, it is. It's not, brilliant news that it's going that way. Equally, for those that probably have a few pounds sitting in the bank, saving wise, they might be a few pennies richer. And I'm sure that that's really going to make a big difference to them in that sense. But yeah, I mean, in my mind, it should have probably been kept till the new year. And I think maybe it's been used to slightly veer off all the attention from the parties and so forth that Number 10 has been discreetly having over the last year, and obviously depriving everybody else of the parties.
Yeah, the bank's decision increases mortgages by about £15 on a typical monthly repayment for a tracker mortgage, and those are on a variable rate, about £10 per month. And official figures show that almost 2 million people have either one of those two types of mortgage. So about 2 million people. So it's not a lot, but of course that's set against other affordability issues like the rising cost of energy. And actually Rachel Reeves, who's the shadow Chancellor, has suggested that actually the government should, even for a temporary period, to take VAT off of fuel, so off of gas and electricity, which would be a 20% saving for families. So again, it's got to be paid for. It's going to be a hit on the exchequer, and they've got to pay back all of the first lockdown costs as well. And who knows whether there'll be another one now. And there's a question here about whether the government could even afford another lockdown. So there's some fairly fundamental and big decisions going on at the moment, isn't there?
Yeah, they're huge, huge decisions, really. And if I was sitting in those chairs, I think it will be very, very challenging, and lots of arguments around the tables as to what is the right thing. And actually, no matter what you do, it's not going to be the right thing, and it's also not going to be the wrong thing. And I certainly wouldn't want. I don't envy those guys there, and so I think that is an important scenario we have to sort of think about. But when you look at where we are, all of a sudden, with the rates rising every day, it was interesting. I had a conversation, Paul, with somebody the other day, and they said that, do you know that so many more people throughout the years have been dying from the common flu and so forth, and that's never, and some of the numbers were way higher than the numbers that are perhaps even being murmured with the virus. But for some reason, this is always paid the attention. Now, I can only speak from personal experience, and mostly that I tend to do is from that. Of course, during November, I pretty much was down on with the virus myself, and it is different. It is. I certainly never had that experience before. I mean, we've had the cold and the flu and all that sort of good stuff that you get around the winter period, the change of climate, the change of scenery, and all that. But this was obviously something that made me think. So it is a serious thing. People should think of it as a very serious precaution, and of course, it is affecting not just the families, individuals, but of course all the services. And obviously, our thanks go out to people like the NHS, who have done a phenomenal job over the last 2 years, and I think their work's cut out now over the next maybe couple of months again, just to sort of try to contain this. So you've got to be looking at all of those issues, and having look at the bank rate, and of course the things that the government has to decide as to how to keep the purse strings tight, is going to be extremely challenging.
Indeed. The banks are, the view is that the banks are quite liquid at the moment. So they've got money that they want to lend. And obviously these are still historically low rates. So, the suggestion is that actually we won't be seeing, I don't think, sub 1% rates again, obviously because the rates moved up, and indeed over the last couple of months even some of the rates have been increasing before the Bank of England made its decision, as has been noted. But the suggestion is there's still going to be quite a lot of competition in the market for getting customers for mortgages, because the prices are going upwards still at the moment, or even levelling out. They're still positive. And also, obviously, there is very low rates. So the suggestion is that actually you're still going to be able to get yourself a reasonable mortgage deal, despite the fact that rates are going up, probably every month or every couple of months over the next few months. Who knows? I suppose it depends on what happens with the energy prices, in particular in the spring. But I think in the words of Yaz and the plastic population, Joe, the only way is up. And I think that's what exactly it's going to do on the rate. But they're suggesting that there's money to lend, and actually there will be deals out there. So I think if you're looking for a property now, then obviously there's still going to be mortgage deals out there. Perhaps if Bob Singh is watching this morning, he'll be able to give us a confirmation on that, maybe. And indeed, if you're watching and you are thinking about this, what do you think? Do you think the bank should have raised interest rates, or would you have waited if it was you till January? Interesting to get anyone's views watching today. Generally speaking, across the industry, the comment, Joe, is that it's not surprise and it's welcome. Interesting that one person said that in November, the sales to stock ratio was 46%. So 46% of properties were sold in November. And if you compare that to 2017, 2019, it was around 34%. So just over 12% more, about 12% more sold. So it's a healthy industry compared to 2017-19, when in theory we didn't have a care in the world.
Yes, I mean, look, the property industry and the wish and the want of people wanting to buy a home is never going to go away, irrespective. We know, and I'm sure there are viewers of ours that have lived through the 15, the 18% time, and it never stopped people buying and selling. Then, when the bank rates were as high as that, and mortgage rates was as high as that. By the way, the mortgage rate and the bank rates are different, just so to be clear. The bank just drives it. And says, here's our base rate, and we set the foundations here. But the lenders it's entirely up to themselves as to what they wish to charge. Of course, they are governed slightly by the amount of rate they're paying in the borrowing in the marketplace, and then they might change. So at the moment, you are still getting good mortgage rates, primarily because lenders have actually already been charging higher rates anyway, and people are happy to pay those rates. But unfortunately, the headline of the bank rate is the one that upsets everyone, though actually it really means not a lot, because it's actually the amount that you're paying each month to your mortgage lender, and that you're probably already paying much higher than whatever the bank's going to be. So the two are separate. However, the bit that really affects everyone is the Bank of England are going to put their rate up, and all of a sudden everybody stops and thinks, oh, hang on a minute. And fundamentally, this is about probably helping put a little bit of the brakes on the property market that has been. And when you say those figures just in November, you can see why they need to probably think that maybe we should. But equally, it was also fueled by the government. So as I've said many a times in a lot of our programs, they use and abuse the property market for their gain and their losses. When they need to get some money in, they start to do wonderful things, and people go, okay, I'm not paying stamp duty, I'll go out and buy. And then they start to look at now putting the bank rate, which has always been their historical way of putting a brake on the market and saying, okay, here's a 0.25%, and next month or a month after they might put another 0.25 on it, etc. And then people start to think themselves, oh, hang on, the banks know something more than I do, so I need to stop thinking about this, or I don't want to spend as much as I was spending before, and I just need to put a tight rein on my purse strings in order to make sure that I meet all my requirements. So they use that as a thing, but in a way, it's needed. And it needed probably for the savers. Not that they're going to get amazingly rich on this, no. But I think it sort of makes them think those savers will still be buying property, because at the end of the day, that still gives the better return. So fear not, buy. Don't worry about it.
And there's the advice from Mr. Joe Joshi. It's interesting, actually, that Simon Gammon from Knight Frank says that by raising the base rate, it's clear that the Bank of England believes the economy will shrug off the effects of Omicron, but their real focus is on getting a grip on the inflation, and that's their number one priority. Mortgage rates on the high street have been edging up during recent weeks, and it's clear that the lenders think there's going to be at least one more base rate rise next year. And another comment here, that a lot of people thought it would come in the new year, and they give the chance for the sort of the COVID spike to define itself, let's just say, and look at how businesses worked over the Christmas period before doing it. But the suggestion is that they're saying that the fact that they did it now suggests that they're taking it very seriously, and it's more serious than people think. So that's the other side of the coin. But that said, it's only a small incremental rise. So as we said earlier, the impact won't be felt too harshly. But it is a tricky one, isn't it? And as you said earlier, you wouldn't want to be making these decisions yourself.
No, it is. Listen, it's not a fair decision to make. And I think that there are bigger decisions, to be perfectly honest, that need to be made. And those bigger decisions are obviously the protection of the people of the country, and more so all the businesses. I mean, the businesses are suffering beyond. I mean, I wouldn't want to be in the hospitality industry for the last 2 years. We all enjoy a pint, and we all enjoy a good restaurant and so forth, and those guys do a fantastic job. But I do not envy those people right now. Their positions are really unattainable at this, and nothing to do with them personally. It's just where we are in life in general. And I'd love to see that kind of find some sort of normality for all the good people that are out there doing a genuinely good job. And obviously, yes, it sort of probably will sort out the wheat from the chaff with some of the bad reviewed restaurants and food chains, etc., because they wouldn't be able to sustain this sort of thing. But I'm really feeling for, they're just about getting up. They were getting their bookings, and I was talking to somebody only last week, and he was saying, look, all of a sudden our bookings are cancelled. The big parties of 10, 15, 20 are cancelled, and this is their time. Christmas is their time to sort of make up. And it's those injuries that I probably show concern for next year. I mean, that's where I don't think the Bank of England's 0.25% is going to be a big worrying thing. What's really going to be worrying next year is those poor people who have done good things, worked hard, and all of a sudden it's beyond their control that they're going to be. The government's not going to be able to. I'm sure that everybody's going to press them to get some sort of support for the businesses like they did for the last couple of years. But at the end of the day, it's a vicious cycle, isn't it? The pot is the same. It's just about how they're going to rob it. It's a case of robbing Paul to pay Peter. They're going to end up, paying someone, and somewhere else the taxes are going to go up. And then where people will be moaning and say you're a government that said no taxes will go up. Well, where are they supposed to find the money from? It's a vicious circle. And so, I wouldn't want to be in that position at all. And but there might be vacancy soon. You never know.
Indeed. Let's move on to our second story of the day, and it is the fact that, this time of the year, we've got a lot of reports that sort of summarise the year, and that gives us an interesting perspective to look at how the year has worked. So here, we're looking at the best places to have bought in 2021 and the best places to have sold in the year. And it turns out that there's some interesting figures here. So Easton in Bristol has topped the list as the strongest sellers market, with more than 8 out of 10 properties on sale with Rightmove sold subject to contract. And Hoxton, which we now know is in London, is the year's top buyer market, with 9 out of 10 properties that have come to the market still available to buy. So let's just take a look, shall we, at some of these properties. So here's the sellers market. So this is Easton. So hopefully you can see this. So Easton, I've done that. That's clever. There we are.
The other way might have been better.
Yes, exactly. So Easton is 83% sold. Subject to contract, obviously. So that means that 17% of homes are available. The average asking price in Easton, near Bristol, is just under 300,000 at 299, and that's a 7% increase across the year. So on the screen there, the largest increase is at 8%, which is St Neots right at the very bottom. So prices have gone up by 8% there. They're 80% sold and 20% of houses are available. So that's a fairly healthy marketplace. But looking down there, you can see that this is the value end of the market. So the average price is there, a lot of them under 300 or around about the 300 mark. Looking at Reddish share, 238,000, so that's a good value. 257 in Trowbridge, which 207 in Bridgewater. So that's the value end of the market. So I suppose that's where sellers are getting the best response to what they're doing, and then if we look at the sellers side of the market, but buyers side of the market, I'm sorry, Hoxton in Hackney is 10% sold, so 90% homes available. The average price there was 624,500, and prices have dropped by 6%. And if you look down there, generally speaking, Chelsea's bucked the trend, but London tends to be down across the year. So looking at Bayswater down 3, Knightsbridge down 1, Victoria down 8%. So London not having a good time of it, Joe. But does that is that important for people looking to buy? Where I suppose where they're choosing, of course, is going to be important, isn't it?
Yeah, I smile really because I just know that the calls that I'm going to get are going to be that. Joe, you've always said that it's not a bad thing to do and buy, and house prices are always going up, and you've got to do. And here we are reporting figures that are showing that prices are theoretically dropping as far as the statistics are concerned. But rest assured, my dear fellows and friends and people, that it is still the best investment. These are blips and of course statistics that will show that some areas are not shifting, but there are lots and lots of reasons behind this, and particularly in London, the biggest reason of course is the virus and the fact of cost of living, etc. So people have been taking advantage to move out, and those areas have done extremely well, and the ones that where they don't want to be are the ones that haven't. Also, the international market has always been a huge draw, students from all over the world, rental market, etc. And all of that has had a suffering in places like London. So yes, Hoxton, which is part of the Hackney, which we now know, 90% of them properties haven't sold and 10% have. But probably in the next 2-3 years, you'll find that. So yeah, that's maybe the place you need to be buying. So that's where you got to go buy. So as Gordon Gekko said in his thing, this is the case of buy, and out in Bristol way is sell, because that's where you're making the money at this moment in time.
Yeah,
so
and if you look at this in a little bit more detail, 4 of the top 10 sellers markets are in or near Bristol. So 4 out of the 10 are in Bristol or thereabouts. 6 of the top 20 are in Essex, and 18 of the top 20 are in the south of England, which suggests that despite what we're seeing about people looking to the north, actually the best place to sell at the moment is actually in the south, because 18 of the top 20 best-selling areas are in the south.
No, the south has always been the strongest point. The reason why the north started to look at it is it started to offer a tremendous amount of value for money, and a first step on the run of the property ladder, Paul. I mean, it gave people the opportunity at a couple of £100,000, 150,000, etc., to just start. And some of those were investors, and some of them were first-time buyers, and also some of them were travelling further out, because obviously the future is with the transportation. Again, a question raised this week for somebody that I was having a chat with was like, where is the right place to buy? Where do you buy? And I've always said that you've got to look at where the communication is. I mean, the key thing with most young people that are investing and buying is communication. They want to be able to jump on a train, get onto a tube, catch a bus. Those that are going to catch a bus, or get onto the motorway. So communication, and of course, where Uber Eats will deliver across the way where they live. and they don't have to get out of their bed to have the food delivered. So any of those things are the reasons where people want to, invest and buy, and that's where rental markets strengthen. The ones that are in the country aren't going to rent. You've got lesser people that are going to rent a big 4-bedroom house than you have maybe lots of people that are going to rent a flat in the city, because that's just the way the economics work. People want to do that. So I think, it's interesting to see where the impacts are. But the South has been always very strong. And in fact, if you break it down, you could probably see quite a lot of that are in Surrey, Berkshire, and around what we call the stockbroker belt, just outside London towns, even bordering onto West London. Those are always the stronger areas, because it gives you the best of both worlds. You access for London, at the same time you're not far from other parts of the other things that you need in your life.
Yeah, if you look at this, more than 3/4 of houses, 76%, up for sale for 250 and below across UK, were sold subject to contract. So places under 250 grand, 76% sold. Houses were strong, particularly in the southwest, where 82% were SSTC, followed by the southeast at 82% and the east of England at 79%. And Hoxton's success as the top buyer's demand is followed by Aberdeen and Chelsea. 8 of the top 10 buyers' markets are in London, and 16 of the top 20, highlighting the stark contrast in available properties in central London and areas surrounding it. They're still saying that agent stock is at a record low, but there's signs that that's going to be getting better in 2022, because valuation requests are up by 19% compared to this time last year. So more and more people are suggesting that or indicating that they're going to look to sell in 2022. And that's a much needed situation for the agents, isn't it, Joe?
Well, the stock is very important. No stock, no sales. It's as simple as that. But I think people do, and this time of the year, as traditionally, is that sort of time of the year when people sit down and make potential decisions, and decide that these are things that they're going to do in the next year, or in their next 12 months, or whatever the scenario is. They're going to move home, and maybe going to move job, maybe have other circumstances change. So it's a time of thinking, and then they want to then get the valuations and decide what they're going to do. And so January, February normally is quite busier with new stock coming in. The new stock will come in with new vigor, and prices will be much higher, and people will start to say, well, actually, house prices are now starting to increase again. So, it's a bit of a vicious circle, but a lot of people will make predictions of what they want to do in the next week, 10 days.
It's interesting. Rightmove have said that this has been the greatest year for sellers on the market, because they're saying there's a staggering statistic, and this is actually mind-blowing, that at the moment, across the UK, 7 out of 10 properties for sale have been marked SSTC. And if you compare that to 2012, do you know what it was? 2 out of 10. So in 2012, just 2 out of 10 houses were SSTC, and now it's 7 out of 10, which just goes to show the speed and efficiency of the market. And we've lost Joe, which is helpful. Just to pick up some reaction there while Joe comes back in. So Guy, morning Guy, great to have you on. Communication these days means good internet connection. Well, of course, that is actually what Joe always talks about. So just while you were sorting out your phone there, Joe, we were just getting some comment from Guy, who was saying that he was banging your drum, which was the fact that he was basically saying that these days good communication actually means good internet connection, which has been something you have been banging on about for months. And he's gone again. I don't believe this. We've got the same gremlin that we had last week, because it was about halfway through the show that we had a problem last time. But although we're still on the air, which is great news. So Joe is back.
And that's my internet connection going buggers up.
Yeah, that's Guy also said that this whole story is all going to be claimed by Michael Gove as down to his levelling up agenda, which
Of course.
yeah, well, he's a sort that will try and claim any credit wherever he can, I would suspect, although I don't know, of course, just from a legal perspective. Okay, then our final story of the morning, and this is really just an update for landlords, really, because this is about the EPCs, and we have discussed this topic and the conundrum that the legislators are going to have with this, because the suggestion is that they want to get all the EPCs up to a level C for buy-to-let properties. So buy-to-let investors have been given until 2026 to bring their properties up to an energy performance certificate of C, according to the Daily Telegraph. However, the deadline for existing lets to be upgraded to C will remain at 2028, while landlords who miss the deadline could be fined up to 30 grand, Joe, which is quite extraordinary. And the consultation process on this closed in January 21, but the government hasn't published any responses yet. The deadline was originally set to be 2025, so they've given them an extra year, and there's a recommended £10,000 cap on the cost of upgrading properties. More than half the rental properties in England need to be upgraded to C, so this is quite a significant thing, according to Hamptons. And the government's English Housing Survey says that the average cost of bringing the level of EPC up to a C is £7,646. So there are no incentives in place for landlords, and that's frustrating the green-focused landlords, the ones that are out there. But the truth of the matter is, all this is going to mean is that landlords are going to review their portfolios, aren't they, Joe? And they're just going to move on the problem properties, and they're just going to go to somebody else who's probably going to not comply with the rules, and that's going to mean poor housing, or it's going to be sold to somebody and it's not going to be very habitable. So they're just going to go to less problem properties, aren't they?
Yeah, look, guys, I'll be honest with you. This is an area that I really didn't have much time for, but I have to tell you that we need to stand up and think very, very seriously about this. This is not excellent news for buyers, sellers, tenants, and landlords. This thing comes in and we have a major issue on our hands. So please, please, please do take it seriously. I haven't. I'm not going to lie about it. EPC to me was just another stealth tax, something you got to tick a box and do it. But if this thing gets in, it's going to cause a lot of problems for a lot of people, and certainly for landlords that have actually not really taken seriously about doing their properties up. You're going to have a huge issue on your hands. Tenants will not be able, you basically won't be able to rent your property out if your EPC is not at C level at the very minimum. So subsequently, you're going to hold a property. If you don't do it up, deal with it, it's not going to get rented. So for the first time, I have to say to you that please, please, please do look into this, take it seriously. It's coming, it's not going to go away. The government have made a pledge, obviously, with the carbon footprint emissions that they want to do. And this is their big, I suppose this is the sledgehammer that they're going to use to crash a nut sort of thing. And that's what they're going to do here. But the people that will suffer will be the landlords and will be the tenants. Now, tenants are going to end up paying more money for their rent. So simply, it's going to be passed down. The costs are going to be anything between, well, they reckon up to £10,000. I know for a fact that you're going to be looking at a lot more money. So there are going to be landlords that are going to have to decide that, you know, they've had a good time out of a particular property and they need to cut out and let somebody else invest into that. And there's always going to be somebody there ready to buy a doer-upper and upgrade it and deal with it. So the two or three areas that you're going to really suffer with low leases. And so if somebody's got a low lease and it looks pretty rubbish, get out. That would be my advice, and let somebody else take it on who's got the money to do it. Because most people don't put that energy back into their properties. And to get a C, and if they're all on the average, what they're saying is that most people have got a G or an E, D, E, F, G, F, G. That means the status are really rubbish, low. So the climb is a lot for someone to actually do that. That includes things like insulation, roof insulation, wall insulation, double glazing or some sort of glazing. And these are not cheap areas that you're going to be doing. It's not as if you can go and do a quick DIY, a couple of screwdrivers and a thing. This is not something that, and of course, the next thing you're going to suffer with is all the available people to do those services. Because it is going to happen in that time. The demand for the skilled chaps that need to go out there and do those is going to be huge. Supply is somewhat limited. And those costs will go up. So it's definitely not going to be, in my mind, £7,000 to £10,000. It's probably going to be more between £15,000 and £20,000 to be real. And so you're going to have to really sit down and think about this. And the time span is not that long. 2025, I think it's been extended to 2026 as a fair start for for new properties, and for existing properties, I think it's a bit longer.
28.
The other way around.
28. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. So definitely worth sharing this part of the program. I never normally say something is a must, but in my view, I looked at this and looked at the stuff, and I have to tell you that we've got to shape up our advice, and those landlords that own substandard properties, this is your time to make a decision. Shape up or shape out. Basically, you're going to have no choice, and let somebody else get it. That's a good thing for people like me, of course. Auctionproperty.co.uk, where we're up and about, and if anybody needs to sell their property rapidly and get on with things, then the gavel will happily fall down and we'll move and find you a new buyer. But do take it seriously, and for letting agents and for all those. Never really want to deliver that more seriously than I've just said that. So do please take this seriously. It's I've always thought, it's EPC, so anybody could do that. Just get a man around the corner, I'll give you a certificate. But I think we've got problems coming, and they've got to be sorted.
And there's another anomaly with this, Joe, because there's the government is looking to steer investors towards replacing gas boilers with carbon-free systems like heat pumps or hydrogen-based heating systems, but they're not actually covered by the EPC, so they've got to sort that out, surely.
It'll come in, but that's probably the least of the issues, to be honest with you, Paul, right now. The properties that sometimes I've seen, and I'm sure Guy will tell you, and other people that are watching will tell you, are just, sometimes not fit for purpose. So, I know of clients that have got huge old portfolios of properties, and they've had tenants in there forever, and they're happy or not happy, whatever. But even those are going to cause problems, because all of a sudden they've got a right to turn around and say to you, this property doesn't meet that criteria, and either you shape it up or I'm going to report you. And if they report you, it's £30,000, whatever that figure was, as a fine. It's cheaper to get the thing repaired and move them somewhere else. And they will make an example. So don't be the person to be made the example of. I just cannot actually deliver this any more serious than I can at this moment in time. Do take heed of this advice.
I have to read you a comment on this story, presumably from a landlord. £30,000 fine is £30,000 fine is grossly excessive and does not reflect the offence. But I guess it's in line with bullying Boris and his landlord bashers. I guess if extra time is given where existing tenancies are in place, it will at least give the landlord time to sell the property and place their investments somewhere that will not be subject to bashing from Shelter, Generation Rant, or every political party. I hope they have contingency plans for the housing to meet the accommodation. It's all very tongue-in-cheek, but it just goes to show how popular that is. And actually, looking at Guy's last comment here as well, increasing rents and increased rents will mean there's less homes to rent. So because landlords are selling, so that's just going to mean that rents are going to go up, isn't it? So basically, that's what he's saying there. There's going to be no housing, because people will go, I just want to get out of it. And the properties that are substandard, no one's going to buy them to let unless they're going to put the money in, but they wouldn't want to do that. So it is going to just lead to people paying more for their rent, isn't it, essentially?
Absolutely. The first thing I said is that this is now going to mean that rental values are going to go up. People are going to have to pay more rent, but because the land, where are they going to do it? It's just a case of passing the cost on, isn't it? So the landlord's got to go out there and do this up and make this up to sea level as a very minimum. The tenant's going to pay for it, and the tenant will pay for it because they want to live in a nice property. And if they want to live in a nice property, they've got to pay the price for it. If you want to live in a shabby property, of course you're going to get it, but like I said, I've never really taken EPC seriously, in all honesty, because I just thought it was just another tick box thing. But looking at what is being discussed, I think every landlord and homeowner should really seriously think about this. And probably one of the easiest way to look at that, and this is where Bob will come into it, is probably to go to your lender. Now is a good time to go to your lender and ask them for a further advance if you've got the equity in there, and shape it up, because obviously it will increase the value of your rental income and it will increase the value of your property. But the sooner you get on it, the better it will be. And there will be a shortage of tradespeople, that I can assure you too, because these are all odd job type of things, but do get them done properly. Do get the jobs done properly, because at the end of the day, if somebody thinks that you haven't done it properly, you could be subject to a liability of a fine of £30,000. So you might have spent the money trying to do it up with a guy who hasn't got the right credentials, and you still end up paying £30,000 as a fine. So it's about as serious I can make it. Hopefully that's quite serious.
Indeed. Just before we go, because our time is up, but I just wanted to alert people to the fact that we have our specials on Boxing Day. We will be joined by Bob Singh and Guy Charrison, who've got very specialist and expert knowledge in particular fields. And we've got a program theme around looking back at 2021 and getting their steer on the year and some advice from them. And we'll also have them again. I can't believe they're not busier. The fact they can be with us on Boxing Day and they can be with us on the 2nd of January for our Sunday shows, they must be having tough times, the pair of them. They really must, that they've got that much time that they can spare it for us. But we're very grateful for them for giving their time on Boxing Day and on the 2nd of January. And so we've got 2 special shows. So please do that thing where you subscribe and so you get the notifications when we're live, because we will be here talking about 2021 and 2022 in our New Year programme for the New Look show that will be on at that point. So please join us for those. In the meantime, we'll... what's this here? Yes, I think this is Bob coming in now, isn't it? So it's because we love you. And Joe says, no, Guy says, we're just friendly. So it's going to be a good chat next week. We're looking forward to that very much indeed. Do join us for that. Joe, thanks ever so much for your comments. Thank you to those that have commented on the show today. Join us again on Boxing Day, 10 o'clock, for our special show where we'll have our special guests, Bob Singh and Guy Charrison. Looking forward to that very much indeed. Thanks for watching.